thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And tension continues to build at the headquarters of the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, where scores of new Patriotic Party supporters and senior party officials have gathered, demanding the immediate release of Dennis Miracles ABOAGYE, who served as Director of Communications for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's 2024 presidential campaign. Miracles ABOAGYE was reportedly arrested on Sunday, July 11, and circumstances, actually 12, and the circumstances that remain unclear. The NPP has described the arrest as politically motivated, accusing the government of using state institutions to intimidate members of the opposition. EOCO has not publicly responded to these allegations, but Richard Ahiagba, who is Director for Communications for the NPP, spoke earlier on tours on New Day on TV3. Listen.
They should tell us why. They should allow him access to his lawyer so we get the reason why he was detained on Saturday night, okay, when they don't need him for any investigation. Because they just kept him, literally. Nobody interviewed, did anything, just kept him because everybody is weekending, right? So nobody interviewed him. And I'm saying that our best guess at this moment is that he is being detained because he's a critic. And the reason why they would do that is that they've done that to many people who are criticizing this government on social media, TikTok, X, whatever. They're arresting people for saying president is that, arresting people for this. So this is part of a long list of people who have been arrested to silence criticism, to silence dissent in a democracy, unfortunately. And so it pains me that after these incidents, we have to constantly remind this government and His Excellency that this one is a democracy. Okay, this can happen in somewhere, excuse me to say, not indicting them, but for what it is in Burkina Faso, where it's not a democracy, elsewhere where it's not a democracy. But here, it's a democracy, and you've got to respect the rights of people. You can't do this in a democracy.
And you have there Richard Ahiagba. He's the Director of Communications for the NPP, speaking earlier on New Day on TV3. We have a reporter, Christian Yale, who is currently monitoring affairs for us. He's been there since morning, but earlier he spoke to Salam Mustafa, who is the National Youth Organizer for the NPP.
Simple, release him, let him go. You don't need 1 hour, 2 hours to do interrogation of the issues you want. Ask him your questions and allow him to go home. Simple as that. We live in a civil society and civility must work. If we are building a democracy, the tenets of democracy must work. But this is an affront to democracy. That somebody travels, lands in Ghana, and you quickly pick the person up. Somebody who has proven to you that he's not a flight risk. You say arrest the person, come and dump the person, then say that no access to him. Order from above. His lawyer cannot access him, family cannot access him. The person should just be there because of your say-so, because that's how you like it, because you will power. You have power today, but you don't know tomorrow. A few months ago, it was the MPP that was in power. The NDC is in power. Even if you stay here 100 years, one day you go to opposition. And that's why people should be careful when they are misusing power in the way they are misbehaving today. Tomorrow to catch up with them. That's one I can give assurance.
How long are you going to be here, Anthony?
This is something I enjoy doing. We'll keep coming here. Look.
And he had Salam Mustafa. He's the National Youth Organizer of the opposition NPP. We do apologize for the poor quality of that sound because of the noise. Meanwhile, security analyst Richard Kumado says the investigative authorities must be allowed to do their work without interference from politicians. He spoke earlier to me on New Day on TV3.
When we have an issue where politicians in particular keep telling us their ancestors has been arrested and they can't find them, and they want to create a problem for the law enforcement officers. I think as part of public education, we need to really advise people and educate them how some of these arrests are done and what the implications are. When you have, if Richard Kumado is picked up today, my lawyers will be informed why I am picked up, and myself, I will be informed why I am picked up and where I am kept. If it's for political purposes, then we can create the notion that Richard Kumado has been picked, and my lawyers don't know where I am, and I have been picked for no cause. But if the law enforcement officers are doing their job in line of duty and in line with standard guidelines, then everybody can be picked at all times, and everybody can be picked, especially when crime has been seen to be committed or you have come under criminal investigations. And I think I need to make this point so strongly, and so that we stop this whole bastardization of security agencies when they are doing their job. If they don't do their work and we keep on bastardizing them, then we are going to have a country where there will be chaos. And I don't think many of the people who bastardize many of these security officers in the course of duty know exactly what they are talking about, and they don't know exactly what it takes to be a law enforcement officer. Really? To be a head of EOCO, to be the Director General BNI, and to be the Director General Cybersecurity Authority, and to be an IGP. These are professionals who do their job in line of law, and they know exactly what they are doing, and they don't just go out there picking everybody. And the law states that within 48 hours, you have to be sent to court. If there are issues for which you are not being sent to court, your lawyers will be informed, not your political party. And that is the point I want to make. The NDC will not be informed, the NPP will not be informed. If you have a legal representation, they will be informed. And if you do not have, the state will provide you one.
And you had the Richard Kumado. He's a security and a fraud consultant. There's a statement coming in from EOCO, and it's just... let me go through that statement coming from EOCO for you, and it says arrest of Dennis ABOAGYE, aka Miracles, and Gerald Appiah in respect of 55 million Ghana cedi investigations into the Inter-Ministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization. And it's dated 13th of July 2026. It says the Economic and Organized Crime Office wishes to inform the general public that it has arrested Mr. Dennis Edward ABOAGYE, former Executive Secretary of the Inter-Ministerial Coordinating Committee on Decentralization, in connection with ongoing investigations into alleged financial and procurement-related irregularities at the Secretariat. It says the arrest follows extensive investigations commenced by EOCO after receiving a petition from the current Executive Secretary requesting further investigations into a forensic audit conducted into the affairs of the Secretariat covering the period from August 2022 to February 2025. The investigations, which commenced last year following the initial forensic audit of the IMCCOD and the subsequent petition, concern the suspected misappropriation, misapplication, diversion, and theft of public funds amounting to about 55 million Ghana cedis. The former Executive Secretary of the agency, Mr. Dennis ABOAGYE, aka Miracles, the former accountant, Mr. Gerald Appiah, and others are under investigation for suspected offenses, including conspiracy to steal and stealing, using public office for profit, causing financial loss to the state, dissipation of public funds, defrauding by false pretense, and money laundering. So these are 6 charges the statement from EOCO is stating. And it said, okay, actually 7, and said other suspected offenses, and says EOCO notes that Gerald Appiah has voluntarily begun refunding, as into bracket, returning the loot of funds connected to the crimes under investigation. It says these recoveries do not and by themselves conclude the investigative process, neither does it absolve any suspect of any crime. Now, following significant news findings last week relating to suspected fraud and theft involving Mr. Dennis ABOAGYE, who is already aware of the investigation and already visited the office on it, EOCO initiated an operational plan to effect his arrest this week. As part of this process, Mr. ABOAGYE was placed on the stop order a week ago to prevent any sudden travel that could impede the investigation this week. Unknown to the office, he had already departed the country. Upon his arrival at the Kotoka International Airport on Saturday night, officers of the Ghana Immigration Service executed the stop order and handed Mr. ABOAGYE over to EOCO on Sunday morning. He subsequently accompanied investigators on a search on Sunday, which continued today. So that's the statement coming in from EOCO. Let's get a quick thought of Dr. Samuel Afriye. He's a political analyst. Good afternoon to you. So I know you've been holding on for some time. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, and good afternoon, Beatrice.
I've just read a statement coming in from EOCO. How does that change the dynamics, first of all, of what we've been talking about since yesterday evening?
Yes, I think it's quite unfortunate that the release just came. You know, I think our investigative institutions need to improve their way of handling with the citizens, especially not only the political parties or the political agents or maybe people that they want to hold them accountable. At least we, the citizens, also need some clarification or a little bit of understanding about why some people have been arrested. I think if this information could have been earlier been given out, I don't think that people will even try to go to EOCO for answers or to demand for his release. And I think these are the things that we need as a country as we are moving along, that the moment that some of these things are arrested, we are not saying that it is a responsibility, but sometimes some of these things can be done just to reduce some kind of political tension, and also at the same time try to calm situations down for other things. But maybe the politicians might also take it as a way of diversion or any other intentions. But in proper perspective, as the police has been trying to do, I think most of the time when these issues comes in, you see that the police will come up with a press release, police will issue a statement. I think these EOCO and other state institutions, we are not trying to tell them what to do, but it could be helpful for them to also let us know some of these reasons, because it just gives people the room to speculate, give room for people just to see the government in a different form, and also in another way that it might not augur well for some of these governance situations.
So you think that all these political interpretations that have been given this arrest is because EOCO failed to do what it had to do, but now is doing it?
Yes, you know, it's about timing. We are not saying that the EOCO should not engage in any accountability or anything, but the timing, because he was arrested, I don't know, I think it was Sunday or so.
Saturday night, and then they brought him in on Sunday, yes.
Yes. So you have a reason, you have some evidence to prove of his arrest. So maybe you can even just issue a press release with scanty information and say that investigations are still going on. At least it will just give a little bit of information about how things are being done. But you give room, space where people will just interpret it wrongly with their own perceptions, with their own understanding, with their own ways of seeing things, then you are making it more difficult. And that is an old way of handling some of these investigative issues against public or people who have been given responsibility, especially past government officials. So I think we have to improve, Beatrice. We need to have a way of trying to get things done in a way that it might serve its good intentions and purpose as well.
Beyond this, I mean, the other side of it is also the fact that we've had the MPP come in, and the EOCO statement said that Dennis had actually been at EOCO before as part of the investigative process, so it presupposes that he knew what was going on, and perhaps party executives as well. Now that EOCO has come out to speak, what do you foresee as the implications for the MPP in particular?
Well, you know, when such information are given out, it just gives the party an option to also look at how they will strategize to get him, or maybe to just get him bail or any other options if it's a legal process that they have to go through. So it just gives a clarity. It just gives the party, that is the MPP, an option to look at how they can handle the situation. But if it is shrouded with no reason, no kind of information, that is where you see them asking people to go to these institutions to demand for the release. And sometimes it might be true, it might not be true, but if it is true, then why do you allow people to go to or to amass at these centers? Because they may not have gathered the relevant information, or maybe they may have a prior information or knowledge, but if officially some of these things are not being issued, then it becomes a little bit confusing for the end, and that is where they will tend to interpret it in a political perspective. And in Ghana, the moment people tend to have political interpretation, then they want to confuse us with the real issues that people need to be held responsible for their stewardship.
My final question to you, what do you believe should be the way forward for both EOCO and indeed the MPP as well?
Well, for EOCO coming out with this statement, I think if they found any issue that they think that they have to send it to court, they have to hand over to the police, or maybe they have to send it to court straight away. They don't have to waste time. And if it goes to court, then maybe the MPP will also come in and then try to see the way out for him, or to defend him in the other perspective. But if EOCO have found any issue against him, or if the statement will say that investigation are still continuing, that's a different thing. But if they found anything, something against him, then they have to send him to court straight away to avoid where these locations of these people, these institutions, where people will be going there and maybe trying to disturb the peace around those environments.
Dr. Afriye, thank you very much for speaking to us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Beatrice. And
you had Dr. Samuel Afriye. He's a political analyst sharing his thoughts with us regarding the arrest of Dennis Miracles ABOAGYE, and of course the statement issued in just a while ago by EOCO, clarifying, as it were, what's going on in connection with his arrest, as well as another official who were executives at an office, a public office for that matter. You're still here on the Midday News on 3FM and 92.7, some 19 minutes past the hour of 12. Stay with us. And you're still here on the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. We stay on the opposition NPP because the party's constituency executive elections were marred by pockets of disturbances over the weekend, with incidents of violence, disruptions, and heightened security concerns reported at some polling centers. One of the most talked about incidents occurred in Afija East, where social media activist and politician Okatachi Afrifa was apprehended after allegedly attempting to disrupt the electoral process. In Bantama, voting was suspended on Saturday following disturbances that forced the Electoral Commission officials to withdraw from the exercise. The election, however, resumed and was successfully concluded on Sunday. Our Northern Bureau Chief William Evans Income was on the ground covering these developments. He joins us live now with the latest on this. William, first of all, let's begin with Afija East, which has dominated political discussions over the past 24 hours. What exactly happened today, if you can remind us?
Well, so on Sunday, Okatachi Afrifa had gone there to stop the process because, according to him, there was a court injunction barring any process to electing constituency executives. But that action did not sit well with the organizers of the election and for that matter, that police, because what I've been told is that he was a bit aggressive and the police felt he was undermining security. So there was some level of exchange in terms of words, and some guys who had also accompanied him, according to report, allegedly opened fire. And that created some level of scuffle between the police and then, his team. In the course of that, he was arrested. But he also sustained some injury. As I speak to you now, he's still under police guard at the Mampong hospital receiving treatment. And I've also been told that the other guys who were also apprehended, they are still in custody and they are being prepared for court.
In Bantama, the initial process was disrupted on Saturday before voting resumed on Sunday. How was the situation brought under control, and perhaps how the election eventually proceeded?
Well, so we all thought that it wasn't going to happen because an injunction has been served on the exercise. But let me also place on record that in the lead up to Saturday and Sunday's exercise, a communication had come from the national headquarters of the opposition NPP, stating that only 2 constituencies had issues. That was Efrija Sector East and ASHANTI Akim Central. So the Bantama, we understand, issue came up in the morning. And right after that particular injunction was served on them, even though there was some level of defiance because the EC had withdrawn their services because of the injunction, but the exercise was still being carried out by the executives of the Bantama constituency. And in the course of that, as we reported, some guys also invaded the place and then decided to disrupt this whole process. But yesterday, it happened. Beatrice, I'm unable to tell you whether what happened yesterday is something that you will call legit, because as I speak to you now, the national headquarters, a letter has been issued by the national headquarters of the opposition New Patriotic Party, signed by the chief scribe of the party, stating that they are going to review what happened in some of the constituencies.
And that would include Bantama.
Bantama is part of it.
But okay, but just tell us, really, hours after the incident in both Bantama and the other area where Okatachi is, how would you say these 2 constituencies are like now?
So come again. Are you talking about whether
the atmosphere in these 2 constituencies in particular that had the issues on Saturday and Sunday?
Well, so yesterday it was charged, and nonetheless the exercise continued. They were able to elect their constituency executives. The same thing also happened in the Bantama constituency.
So calm has returned.
There wasn't any incident, but they did the exercise.
So there's calm. That's what I mean to ask.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's calm. There's calm as I speak to you.
Thank you very much, William Evans-Zinkum. He's my colleague in the Ashanti region. In a separate development, lawyers for the NPP Ashanti Regional Chairman are yet to file their written submissions to aid the court in delivering judgment in the case against their client. After assuming counsel for Chairman Wontumi following the withdrawal of ANTWI BOASIAKO, Samuel Atachia, at the last adjourned date, pleaded with the court for the judgment, which was scheduled for July 6 to be deferred. Chairman Wontumi has been charged with assigning mineral rights without approval from the lands minister and facilitating unlicensed mining operation at Samreboi in the Western region. Lord Adwasari is our court affairs correspondent. He joins us live on the line. Lord, what other details can you share with us?
All right, Beatrice, so like you indicated, Samuel Atachia, you'd recall that following the withdrawal of ANTWI BOASIAKO as legal counsel for Chairman Wontumi, he pleaded with the court for deferment in the judgment, and then the date for the judgment in the Samreboi case, I should add, was deferred to July 20th. Now, part of the directions of the court was that someone filed the written submissions on or before 13th of July, which is today. Now, our checks from the court registry, and essentially the court clerk indicates that he's, as of now, yet to file this document or this submission. And so, for more indications, the judgment will still proceed on July 20th as scheduled. But one thing we also need to add to is that because the day has not ended yet, it is possible that he will file this written submission before the day ends. We are also thinking that, for example, Atachia is working on processes to have Dennis Miracles ABOAGYE, the former Baumia campaign manager who is in EOCO custody, filed a bill for him, and so that's probably a number of things for which reason someone hasn't been able to file those written submissions for his new client, Chairman Wontumi. And so we are still gathering around to see when he will file this case. Then also there were other cases here in court had to do with the former deputy director of the National Service Authority, GBEWA. Now, the prosecution's second witness, an accountant, a former accountant, I should say, with the authority was cross-examined by lawyers for GBEWA, and they sought to they put before the witness an Auditor General's report from 2018 to December 2024, for which he had been cited in, and they wanted him to make certain determinations in that regard. All that has been going on. And as I speak to you, this was another case concerning the former Men's Group CEO, Namwan Nanapia Mesa. In court, he was supposed to have filed his documentation, including his witness statements. But as of the time that I was in court, the judge was not very pleased because he hadn't filed the document that he was supposed to have filed, and his lawyers indicated that they had only filed it this morning, and so they were supposed to go to the registry to make sure that they serve the Attorney General's office, among other things. And so this is what we have by way of updating for this morning, Beatrice.
Thank you very much, Lord Adwasari, our Court Affairs correspondent. Now, before we go, the DAGBON area is currently grieving as the GBEWA Palace announces the passing and burial of Yana ABUKARI II. Now, his son now becomes the regent of the DAGBON Kingdom in accordance with custom. And we'll bring you more on this in our subsequent bulletins. That's it for the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7. My name is Beatrice Adu. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Coming up shortly is Business Daily with Michael Obudu. Log on to shrenews.com for more news.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Agric Minister says Ghana can end tomato import within 4 months.
We are also looking at input distribution. So the center is not only about mechanization. We are also looking at input distribution.
And Ghana Association of Banks back members staying open as essential services following MP Theresa Awuni's confrontation. Plus, investors flood Treasury bill auction with over 10 billion cedis as government rejects costly bid to manage debt. I am Michael Obodu. Details of these and many other stories lined up for you. Do stay tuned. Thank you so much for your time. Straight into our top story. And the Minister for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, says government measures to increase local tomato production could begin showing results within the next 3 to 4 months with the aim of ending Ghana's dependence on imported tomatoes. Speaking before Parliament's Select Committee on Assurance, Mr. Opoku said the government has begun implementing measures to reduce the country's reliance on imported tomatoes, particularly from neighboring Burkina Faso.
We have secured 10 acres in all the districts for the farmer service centers. We are using 2 acres to put up the facility. And the remaining 8 acres, we are looking for prospective private investors to set up processing plants close to the center so that if the farmers in that enclave produces rice in abundance and there's a milling facility at the service center, they can go and then do the milling there. We have a silo as part of the facilities there, then we store them. So the center is not only about mechanization. We are also looking at input distribution.
So that was the Minister for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, speaking there. Now, the Ghana Association of Banks has defended a decision by its member banks to remain open during last week's national cleanup exercise, insisting they were acting within the law as essential service providers. The association's response follows an incident involving the Member of Parliament for Kaikwe North, Theresa Awuni, who reportedly confronted staff at one of its member banks after the branch remained open during the exercise. The following 3 Business News Desk report has more. In a statement, the association says banks were exempted from the government's directive requiring non-essential businesses to close, citing regulations introduced during the COVID-19 pandemic that classify banks as essential service providers. It says member banks were instructed to continue serving customers while staff simultaneously participated in cleaning the surroundings of their branches. The association describes reports that the MP entered the branch, confronted staff, and used demeaning language as deeply concerning, stressing that bank employees were acting in full compliance with government directives. The Ghana Association of Banks says it remains committed to working with government and parliament, but is calling for more constructive engagement while reaffirming that it will not tolerate intimidation or abuse of bank staff. And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Now, investor appetite for Ghana government short-term securities surged past expectations on July 10, 2026, forcing the Treasury to selectively reject expensive bids to keep its borrowing cost in check. For tender 2015, the government set out to raise 5.669 billion cedis, but saw an oversubscription of more than 10 billion cedis. This report has more.
Investors responded aggressively, submitting total bids of 10.034 billion cedis against government's target of 5.669 billion cedis, seeking a balance between meeting its near-term financing needs and avoiding high-interest expenses. Government ultimately accepted 7.383 billion cedis, rejecting roughly 26.4% of the total offers. Subscription rate was 177%. Oversubscription rate was 77%, while acceptance rate stood at 73.58%. The benchmark 91-day and 182-day bills recorded nominal 1 basis point drops in yield, compared to the previous week, indicating strong liquidity and heavy bidding in the shorter dated brackets. Conversely, the 364-day bill rose to 12.99% as investors demanded higher compensation for locking up capital over a longer horizon amid ongoing macroeconomic considerations. The 91-day bill drew total bids of 2.981 billion cedis from investors. Out of this demand, government opted to accept 1.796 billion cedis, ceiling the short-term borrowing at a yield of 5.86%. The 182-day bill saw the lowest relative volume, but still recorded solid interest, pulling in offers totaling 1.398 billion cedis. From this pool, the states took 1.057 billion cedis at an interest rate of 7.78%. The 364-day bill was the star attraction of the auction, commanding a massive 5.654 billion cedis in investor bids. The Treasury ultimately accepted 4.529 billion cedis of those long-term offers, with a final yield landing at 12.99%.
And that was the 3 Business News Desk report. Before we leave you, Commissioner of Insurance Dr. Zakaria has assured flood victims that the National Insurance Commission is taking steps to fast-track their compensation. Speaking to 3 Business, Dr. Zakaria announced that special desks are being set up to directly receive and quickly process claims from insured individuals. The Commissioner of Insurance outlined a dual-focus approach by the National Insurance Commission to protect Ghanaians against the devastating impact of floods.
For those who are insured, we are setting up special desks so that they can come to us and we can respond quickly to them. They should be assured that we are here to make sure that everybody who has suffered from the flood and has insurance, we will compensate, and the compensation will come quick and fast enough so that they can recover their lives and move on. For those who do not have insurance, our plea is that people should remember that insurance is not those who have a choice or those who can afford. Insurance is a prevention and a protection when you suffer from the ineventuality, things you didn't know about and you didn't prepare about. It is something we all need. So for us as insurers, we have a job to help people, to protect them when they suffer a loss, but most importantly, also to guide them so that they don't even suffer the loss in the first place. So our job here is in twofold. We are helping in the campaign to prevent it from happening, and we will also assure Ghanaians that when it does happen, those who have suffered, we will also compensate so that they can recover from the challenge, the costs of the flood.
And that was Commissioner of Insurance Dr. Zakaria, ending today's edition of Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more stories, kindly check out our website. It's 3news.com/business. I am Michael Obodu. Thank you for tuning in. As always, please stay safe. Up next is Urban Blend, and Black Rasta is on standby. Do stay tuned.